Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone for the session on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 1 and 2 overviews today. We all saw the overview of the whole Canto 2. I heard from few devotees it was little different from Canto 1. Yes, Canto 2 is more philosophical and intense than Canto 1, though it is just 10 chapters, almost half of the Canto 1. So I'm trying to present it as simple as possible. However, it will be a little technical, so you all have to maybe after the session refer a little bit to understand what's happening. So with this note, we will begin the Canto 2. So as we all know, the Canto 2 has total 10 chapters, and it is divided into 3 subsections. The first subsection is the chapters 1 to 3, where superiority of Bhakti Yoga will be discussed. So we will get into that section now. Just to give kind of a recap for where we are and how we begin. So we will begin with, um, before beginning this, we will see the questions by Parikshit Maharaj that he asks in Canto 1. Towards the end of Canto 1, when Parikshit Maharaj met Srila Shukadeva Goswami, so he asked essentially 2 questions. So this is the seed questions on which Srimad Bhagavatam is based, that their conversation begins. What is the ultimate duty of every person, especially one who is about to die? And what he should hear, chant, and remember, and what he should not do. And it also applies to people in general. So this is the kind of questions that Parikshit Maharaj asks. In short, how to live in this world and how to leave this world. So for this question, Shukadeva Goswami is beginning to speak from Canto 2, first chapter. So the first chapter is titled, Srila Prabhupada is titled this, the first step in self-realization. And there are 39 verses in the first chapter. The first 11 verses speak about the superiority of bhakti, and 12 to 14 is like a small intersection. And then 15 to 39, Shukadeva Goswami in detail presents Ashtanga Yoga for attaining liberation. So we will see in the flow the details of why these topics are being discussed. So the first section is going to be Shukadeva Goswami, first of all, appreciating Parikshit Maharaj's questions. That's such nice questions that he has asked. Pariyan eshate prashna kruto lokahitam nrupa atmavid sammatah pumsam shrotavyadhi shuyaha paraha. So in this way, Shukadeva Goswami glorifies Variyan eshate prashna, means great questions, really wonderful questions. Kruto loka hitam nripa, means this is why these are great questions, because it is beneficial to all people. Loka hitam. Atmavit sammatah pumsam, it is approved by transcendentalists. And Shrotavyadi Shuya Paraha, it is the supreme subject matter for hearing for anyone in this world. So in this way, your questions are really, really to the point. So in this way, he glorifies the questions of Parikshit Maharaj. And then he begins with what should not be done, what not to chant, hear, and remember. So in this way, Shukadeva Goswami begins his reply. So he begins to condemn actually the materialistic way of living from in these first 4 verses. So he speaks what are the materialistic life, its characteristics and disadvantages. So that is what he explains first, so that we understand the importance of Krishna consciousness. So he gives the characteristics of materialistic life. He says the people are materially engrossed because they are blind to ultimate truth, and because of that they have thousands and thousands of things to hear, chant, and remember. Specifically in this age of modern media, after the internet has come, there is hundreds, not just hundreds, not just thousands, there are billions of things to chant, hear, and remember. Earlier, at least, people had no technology, but now this material engrossment has been intensified by the effective use of technology. And in this way, they waste their life in the night in bodily enjoyment or sleep, or in the day making money or family, maintaining the family. So in this way, they just don't know anything beyond this. And in this way, they do not inquire into the problems of life because they have great faith in the fallible soldiers of money and other things. And even though they see all other people are in this world dying, still they see, but they cannot see the importance of understanding the concept of the soul. So in this way, he explains the characteristics and disadvantages of materialistic life, and then he goes on to say what to remember. Now that we understand this materialistic life is not proper, so what we should do, what we should chant, what we should hear and remember. So Shukadeva Goswami continues to explain that by stating in the chapter 5. So what we should be hearing, verse 5, he says, Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishwaro Harihi Shrotavyah Kirtitavyascha Smaratavyascha Ichathabhyam. So, descendant of King Bharata, one who desires to be free from all miseries must hear about, glorify, and also remember whom the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the only person who should be heard about, glorified, and remembered. All other things will actually bind one to this material world. So, in this way, he concludes what should be chanted, heard, and remembered by all, by everyone at all times, and also specifically for a person who is about to die. Ichchata abhayam. If someone wants fearlessness, specifically at the time of death, this is how they should be living all through their lives. So that's why the word tasmad is used as a conclusion for the first four verses. Whatever he said, he says fifth verse tasmad. Therefore, give up materialistic life and just focus on hearing, chanting, and remembering about Krishna. So in this way, Shukadeva Goswami has summarized the answer to his question in a way that it is basically Bhakti Yoga. What he is saying is Bhakti Yoga. It is not different from Bhakti Yoga because it is just hearing, chanting, and remembering Krishna, which are the angas of Bhakti actually. So in this way, he concludes in the fifth verse. So that means like he has already completed the answer for the question of Parikshit Maharaj in a way. And he goes on to continue to glorify the bhakti as the topmost process. So in that he says that how the highest perfection of human life achieved either by Sankhya Yoga or by mystic yoga or any occupational duty is all to remember the Supreme Lord at the end of one's life. So this famous verse he says, Etavan Sankhya Yoga Bhyam Swadharma Parinishtaya Janma Labha Parapumsam Ante Narayana Smriti. So in this way he glorifies that Ante Narayana Smriti, remembering Krishna at the end is the purpose of all practices of spirituality. So and then he says how even great self-realized sages, they all get attracted towards Harikatha. And in this way he says this Harikatha is higher than anything. That's why we should remember here and chant this. So someone may question, where is the proof that even self-realized sages get attracted? He says, I myself is the proof. I was who I was Parinishtito api nairgunya uttama shloka lilaya grihita cheta rajarshe athanam edabhitvan. I was a impersonalist sage who was completely liberated in the conception of impersonal Brahman, and I had no attraction to anything which is mundane, and I was completely satisfied. Still, I got attracted to the pastimes of Krishna. That is how attractive Harikatha is. It can attract even the minds of self-satisfied sages. And he says, in this way, if someone hears Srimad Bhagavatam, they will develop unflinching faith towards the Supreme Lord. And he says, therefore, please, of all the limbs of bhakti, chanting is the highest. So take up that. Etanirvidhyamananam ichatam akhuto abharam. If you desire actually fearlessness, then yoginam nirpanirnitam hare namanu kirtanam. He clearly uses the word hare namanu kirtanam. Please chant the holy names of the Lord, which is the best way, following in the footsteps of great souls, which will actually remove the fear in one's heart. In this way, he concludes in the 11 verses the superiority of Bhakti Yoga over Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, and Ashtanga Yoga. So, in this way, he concludes. So, now after that, Parikshit Maharaj is Bhakti Yoga is the best process, especially chanting of the holy names. But Parikshit Maharaj says, I understand Bhakti Yoga is the best process, especially chanting of the holy names. However, I only have 7 days to die. So how will I be able to perfect my life just in 7 days? He said, then Shukadeva Goswami says, oh, actually the quality of life matters, not quantity. So for that he gives an example. It is better to have one muhurta than hundreds and thousands of years. It is better to have just one muhurta of time, which is quality time spent, than hundreds of years of just living without any quality. So for that he gives an example of Khatvanga Maharaj. Khatvanga Maharaj was fighting on behalf of the demigods in the heavenly planets. And then when he finished fighting, he asked the demigods, how much more life I am left with. So they said, all you are left with is just one muhurta. So he immediately he leaves up all other duties, just fixes his attention on the Supreme Lord. For in one muhurta, he achieves the perfection of life and goes back to Godhead. So here 7 days is less. Khatvanga Maharaj achieved perfection in one muhurta. So you that in that comparison, you have 7 days to perfect your life. So no problem. You don't need to worry because it is actually the quality of life that matters. It's not the quantity. So you just focus your attention fully on Krishna now. Even if it is for 7 days, you will be purified. So in this way, he glorifies Bhakti Yoga, encourages Parikshit Maharaj to practice that. So literally speaking, he could have just ended his lecture here, got up and left. However, he understands that there were so many other sages sitting in this group where Parikshit Maharaj is hearing. There are so many other sages in that particular audience who are all of different opinions. So some of them might be thinking, oh, what about Ashtanga Yoga? You said, ye tavan sankhya yoga vyam swadharma parinishthaya janmalabha parapumsa ante narayana smriti. But what about Ashtanga Yoga? Can Ashtanga Yoga not liberate a person? Is that not a better way than chanting the holy names of the Lord? Why should one only chant the holy names of the Lord? Is Ashtanga Yoga not a path of fearlessness? So they may have this question. So that is why then Shukdev Goswami continues to speak about Ashtanga Yoga. Here he is speaking Ashtanga Yoga in very detail, not to instruct Parikshit Maharaj in Ashtanga Yoga, rather to prove how Bhakti Yoga is better than Ashtanga Yoga. For that reason, he is explaining Ashtanga Yoga. Not because Parikshit Maharaj, he is recommending Parikshit Maharaj to practice Ashtanga Yoga. That is not the reason here. So that is why we see why he is explaining Ashtanga Yoga, because there are so many other sages who have different opinions. So some of them may be thinking, why not Ashtanga Yoga? That's why begins to speak about Ashtanga Yoga. He says if somebody is a person on this path being free from the fear of death must cut off all his material desires with weapon of detachment. He says how Ashtanga Yoga should be practiced. First of all, one has to leave home, practice self-control, and bathe regularly at a sacred place and follow other things like non-violence and truthfulness. Sit in a secluded place which is sanctified and remember the Supreme Lord by chanting Om and regulating one's breathing. So Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama. And in this way, when once he is practicing pranayama, he has to begin with the stage of pratyahara. This pratyahara means giving up the food. So withdrawing the mind from sense activities, because mind is the leader of all the senses. So if one withdraws the mind from sense activities, then all the other senses are under control. So that is why he actually works on the mind directly. So dharana, then he fixes. So he removes the senses from mind from the sense objects. So he has to apply it somewhere. Mind has to be given some food. So what is that food one has to give? Fix the mind with intelligence on Lord's form. So instead of sense objects, one has to fill in the Lord's form as the food for mind. So dharana is a stage where a person can only do that for a little while, but when he becomes an expert, he gets into the stage of dhyana. So there he becomes like stable in his meditation that he can meditate on each limb of the Lord without deviating from the conception of the whole body of the Lord and without being distracted. So when that dhyana also becomes very, very continuous and intense, then that gets into the stage of samadhi, completely reconcile, completely focusing one's mind on Vishnu without any other thought. So in this way, he says these are the stages of Ashtanga Yoga. And he says how dharana, the stage of dharana that we saw, the fifth stage, sorry, sixth stage, where one has to focus one's mind on the Lord's form. That stage, he says, destroys the contamination of the mind by rajas and of by tamas and rajas, because mind is generally contaminated by rajogun and tamagun. So this dharana process, by focusing on the Supreme Lord's form, one destroys that passion and ignorance and gradually develops goodness. So in this way, the yogi who sees the Lord, Paramatma, through such dharana quickly achieves his desired goal of liberation. So who's the object of meditation for Ashtanga Yogi? Which is Paramatma actually, the Lord in the heart. So now he kind of gives a uh, small overview of Ashtanga Yoga. He gave in like something like 6 verses, 7 verses. So now Parikshit Maharaj has questions on these 7 verses. He says, how is dharana accomplished? Because it's not easy for the mind to focus on something, to take it away from the sense objects and focusing on the Supreme Lord. It is very difficult. How does that process happen? And he says, when you say one has to focus on Lord's form, what is that? What is that bona fide dharana? What is the actual object of meditation? What should that person meditate upon? And he says, how to quickly remove the contaminations of the mind, because the mind is very much contaminated. So how is it possible the person can quickly achieve? Because he is asking, because it might take a long time, right? So how does one quickly do it? So before getting into the verse flow, I'll explain what is going to happen in the next verses in a short way, next 2 chapters in a short form, so that we know where we are whenever we go through this chart. So now the whole discussion in this chapter and almost like little of the next chapter will be like on Ashtanga Yoga. Not because Shukdev Goswami wants Parikshit Maharaj to practice Ashtanga Yoga. That is not the purpose. The main purpose is to show how Bhakti Yoga is higher than Ashtanga Yoga. That is why he's going into detail to show that to all the sages, because they will not be convinced if he just makes a statement that Bhakti Yoga is better than Ashtanga Yoga. He has to show them how it is better. So that's why he's explaining Ashtanga Yoga in detail. In Ashtanga Yoga, in the stage of Dharana, the sixth stage that we saw, so a person has to meditate on the Supreme Lord. If the yogi is a neophyte, if he has material desires, then he will have to meditate on universal form, Virat Rupa. And if he gets advanced, he can go meditate on the super soul and he will achieve liberation. If from the beginning he is an advanced yogi who has no material desires, then also he can directly meditate on the super soul and achieve liberation. And if he is not a pure like advanced yogi, if he is like a yogi with a lot of material desires, then he will meditate on universal form. And even after meditating on universal form, if he does not give up his material desires, then he will follow a different path of liberation, a gradual path. There is no direct meditation on super soul and then direct liberation. No, he will have to follow the gradual path, which is called as krama mukti. Krama means dire dire, means slowly, gradually. So krama mukti is called gradual mukti, or gradual liberation, step by step liberation. So that we will see. So these two processes will be explained. So whenever you listen to the future slides, you please understand this concept. An advanced yogi can meditate on super soul. A neophyte yogi has to meditate on Virat Rupa. So this is the concept. So until Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahar, all these concepts are common for all yogis. But when they come to the stage of Dharana, an advanced yogi meditates on Paramatma, a neophyte yogi meditates on Virat Rupa. This is the main difference. So now these two paths we will see. Shukdev Goswami will explain the path of meditation on super soul Paramatma, and he will also explain the path of meditating on Virat Rupa, which is universal form. And in the future chapters, he will explain what is Kramamukti, how does it work. So now he is going to explain about Virat Rupa. So he says from verse 26 to 28, Parikshit Shukadeva Goswami will begin answering, saying, now that after perfecting the preliminary limbs of Ashtanga Yoga and up to Pratyahar, one can meditate on the Lord, which is Dharana. But he says one should meditate on the Virat Rupa, the gross material form of the Lord within the universe shell, made of 7 layers, if that person is not a pure-hearted yogi, if he has a lot of material desires. So we will see how that Virat Rupa description is given in Srimad Bhagavatam. So in 29 to 37, the whole set of verses from 29 to 37, Shukadeva Goswami explains how the Virat Rupa is. Virat Rupa could be seen in different ways. One way we can see how the 14 planetary systems are situated on the Virat Rupa, or we can see the Virat Rupa as different limbs, different demigods as different limbs of the Virat Rupa. So let's see why Virat Rupa. Why a neophyte devotee is asked to meditate on Virat Rupa? Because the neophyte yogi has so many material desires. So when he looks at objects, he thinks this is for my this is for my enjoyment. So instead, when he looks the world, he has to look it in the form of, oh, these trees, they are actually the hairs of the Virat Rupa. Oh, wind, this wind is actually the breath of the Virat Rupa. This ocean, this is the abdomen of the Virat Rupa, big abdomen with waist, big enormous body of water like that. When he looks at religion, he has to see something. When he sees Brahma, he has to see something. When he sees birds, he has to see the masterful artistic sense of the Supreme Lord. When he observes the humanity, he has to see the residence. Like this is the residence of the Supreme Lord because he is living in each and everyone's heart. So in this way, looking at everything in this world, he has to constantly meditate upon what it is corresponding to the Lord. So in this way, his view of the materialistic world becomes very much centered around the Supreme Lord. So Rasa, so and he has to think like when he has desires to go to Rasatal, then he will understand, oh, this is actually the heels and toes of the Supreme Lord. When he wants to go to Swarga, he understands, oh, this is the chest of the Supreme Lord. So in this way, everything that he wants, aspires in this world, material things, he has to see it in the form of Virat Rupa. So by meditating on this, he understands everything I'm trying to enjoy belongs to not me, it belongs to the Supreme Lord. So if he is a fortunate yogi, he will understand, oh, then if everything belongs to him, so what is my relationship with that person? So if he gives up that material desires by purification of heart, then he can directly meditate on Paramatma and get liberated from this world. But if he is very attached to his material desires, by meditating on Virat Rupa, he will get purified to the extent that he will become qualified to go to the different places, the higher planetary systems that he wants to go. Is more like a pious credit he gets and goes. He does not get liberated. So this is what Parikshit Maharaj explains. Shukadeva Goswami explains from verse 29 to 37 how the Supreme Lord's Virat Rupa, the form, Virat Rupa form is various planets are situated on it and various demigods are situated on the Virat Rupa. So in this way, a neophyte yogi is supposed to meditate on this Virat Rupa. And by doing this Dharanashraya, using Virat Rupa as the Dharanashraya, when a neophyte yogi meditates, then he should be desiring liberation. So I have described Virat Rupa, which is the bona fide Dharanashraya for neophyte yogi or attached yogi, desiring liberation. So if he is still attached to the things, then he meditates there. But if he gives up this Virat Rupa and tries to meditate on any other object, then that will cause him degradation. Why? Because his senses are attached to different sense objects. So if he sees the sense objects without relation to the Lord, then he will get degraded by them. So that is why he should meditate on everything in this world as belonging to uh, Virat Rupa, and how they are all actually the Supreme Lord's property, not his property. So in that way, he will be protected. And if he gets purified, he can meditate on Paramatma and get liberated, or he will go to higher planetary systems as per his desire. So this is what Parikshit Maharaj is being explained by Shukadeva Goswami in the first chapter. So let's do a revision of the first chapter. So in the first chapter, in the first 5 verses, Shukadeva Goswami explained in short to Parikshit Maharaj what should be done and what should not be done. In the first 4 verses, he said what should not be heard and chanted, and then he said what should be heard and chanted. Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Harihi Shrotavya Kirtitavyascha Smartavyascha Ichatabe. So one has to remember the Supreme Lord and glorify Him and chant about Him. This is what one should do. And he says even the process of karma, yoga, jnana, everything, the ultimate end is to remember the Supreme Lord. So better directly take the path of bhakti. Even great souls are attracted by this path of bhakti. So I am an example. Shukadeva Goswami points to himself that being a sage liberated in material, like impersonal Brahman, still I got actually attracted to. Still, I got attracted to the path of bhakti. So understand this and follow the practice of bhakti, because there are so many other sages. So then they must be thinking, hey, why only chanting the holy names? Why not Ashtanga Yoga? So he starts explaining Ashtanga Yoga. So he explains in short what is Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. And speaking about Dharana, he says, by doing dharana, one's mind gets purified. So Parikshit Maharaj asked 3 questions. Oh, how is dharana accomplished? What is the object of meditation? How does it quickly purify one? So then Parikshit Maharaj, Shukadeva Goswami explained that the Dharanashraya for an attached yogi is Virat Rupa. The Dharanashraya for an advanced yogi is the Super Soul Paramatma. And he explains the whole Virat Rupa, how Virat Rupa should be seen, how the yogi should meditate, and everything in this world is part of the Virat Rupa, belonging to the Supreme Lord. So everything he wants to enjoy is actually belonging to the Supreme Lord. Supreme Lord Virat is the owner of everything. So in that way, if he actually meditates, he can be detached from all his material desires. And if he gets advanced, he can meditate on Paramatma. Or if he still has some desire, he will go to those respective planets to enjoy. So now the first chapter is over. The second chapter, Shukadeva Goswami actually now he takes up the other process. Now that he has spoken a little bit about Ashtanga Yoga, in between some sages may be thinking, oh, is there anybody who actually got success by meditating on the Virat Rupa? Is there anyone who actually got successful? So Parikshit Maharaj might have this question. So then Sukadeva Goswami says, actually, yes, is that Brahmaji actually recreated the universe by meditating on the Virat Rupa. So don't think it is not a bona fide process, but it is a bona fide process. And some others may be in the group thinking, hey, Karma Kanda, why you're speaking about Ashtanga Yoga? Karma Kanda is also a best process. By practicing sacrifices, performing sacrifices, one can achieve all his desires. So then Parikshit Shukadeva Goswami actually says, the Karma Kanda sacrifice is totally rejected. He says the path of the Vedas, where one's intelligence is directed towards meaning like things like heaven, gives only temporary pleasures. So that is not useful. So then he actually condemns the path of Karma Kanda, and he says if one worships the super soul, one will destroy his ignorance and achieve liberation. So then he continues to explain the process of meditation. He rejects what should a dying person should do. So some may recommend Karma Kanda for attaining Swarga. So Shukadeva Goswami gives his opinion about Karma Kanda. He says, no, heavenly pleasures are temporary. An intelligent person should not aspire for heavenly temporary pleasures. While living simple, one should just worship the super soul, and in this way one's ignorance will be destroyed and one can achieve liberation. So he's saying, seeing people suffering from their own actions and because for all these actions and reactions people are experiencing, even after experiencing, only gross materialists who are foolish will reject bhakti and take to karma kanda. So in this way he condemns karma kanda and rejects it and continues to explain. as we saw. Now he is going to explain. Earlier we saw how a neophyte yogi has to meditate on universal form. So he already explained what is how to meditate on universal form in the last chapter. So now he is going to explain about the path of the advanced yogi, how he should meditate on Paramatma and how he will achieve liberation. That is what he is going to explain now in the second chapter first. One thing he has not explained is Krama Mukti. He will explain it soon. So to come again, I'm repeating. In the first chapter, he spoke about the Dharana Shreya of the neophyte yogi, what he should meditate. Object of meditation for a neophyte yogi, which is the universal form. Now he is going to speak about an advanced yogi, Ashtanga yogi. What is this object of meditation, which is super soul, and how he achieves liberation. So let's see now how the description of super soul is given, because the yogi has to meditate, right? So he has to meditate means he has to know how the super soul looks. So Shukdev Goswami is explaining how does the super soul look. He says this is the Dharana for the advanced yogi who has no material desires, and this super soul actually resides in the region of the heart, and he gives the size as 8 inches, and he says he has 4 hands carrying 4 different symbols, and his mouth expresses happiness, his eyes look like lotus petals, he wears yellowish garments, and he has ornaments made of gold set with jewels, headdress and earrings which is glowing. And in this way he explains the supreme law, super soul from the lotus feet to head. And then in this way he says one should meditate on this form until the mind remains in a concentrated state. Once mind becomes fully fixed on this form, one has to continue to meditate on this form. In this way, if one meditates, he says he will be purified. And he mentions how the attached yogi should meditate on Virat Rupa, and the advanced yogi should meditate on Super Soul. And he says how the practice and process of living for an advanced yogi. Now he spoke about what? He spoke about super soul, how to meditate on super soul. Now he has to explain process of liberation, how this yogi will get liberated. So both these things, sadhana and the process of liberation. Two things he will explain for both for advanced yogi and for neophyte yogi. So he has explained how to meditate on the super soul. Now he will explain how the process of liberation takes place for an advanced yogi. So this advanced yogi also starts with yama, niyama, asana, pranayam, pratyahar. And at the stage of dharana, because his heart is pure, he will meditate on Paramatma. This particular form, Paramatma, he will meditate. And that meditation will become very strong. So it will become dhyana, and it will become more continuous. It will become samadhi. And in the state of samadhi, if he continues to meditate on the super soul, he achieves Brahman realization. After achieving Brahman realization, if when he performs Shat Chakra Yoga, he achieves through Shat Chakra Yoga, he gradually what he does is he destroys all his subtle desires. He gives up all everything and raises the life air through his Mooladhara Chakra, which is in the anus, and he brings and then he comes to the place of navel, Swadhisthana Chakra, Manipuraka Chakras, and he comes to heart, Anahata Chakra. Then he focuses his attention, he brings this attention to Vishuddhi Chakra, and finally he focuses on between the eyebrows, and then he blocks all the holes of his body and pierces the Brahmarandra and releases his soul to achieve liberation. So in this way, he has to practice this difficult Shat Chakra Yoga to achieve liberation. So I'll repeat again. This is the process of liberation for an advanced yogi who has no material desires. He also begins with yama, niyama, asana, pranayam, pratyahar. He comes to the stage of dharana, so he meditates on super soul. But a neophyte yogi who is not advanced, he will meditate on Virat Rupa, that we will see later. So this person will meditate on Paramatma. When the meditation becomes strong, he meditates on dhyana, then he meditates on goes to samadhi. In this way, he through Brahman, after achieving Brahman realization, practicing Shat Chakra Yoga, he achieves liberation. Now, Shukdev Goswami will explain about Krama Mukti. He had not explained the process of liberation for an attached yogi. He will explain. He says the object of meditation for an attached yogi is Virat Rupa. And the process of liberation is called as Krama Mukti, gradual liberation. So what is that gradual liberation? It's all same to a certain extent. Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahara. In the stage of Dharana, instead of Paramatma, this person will meditate on Virat Rupa. If he meditates on Virat Rupa, gets purified and becomes a pure-hearted yogi, then he will start meditating on Paramatma and follow the previous slide that we showed. But if he continues to have material desires still to go to heavenly planets, so first he will go to Vaishvanara Loka, then he will go to Shishimara Loka, then he will go to Maharloka, then he will go to Brahmaloka, the planet of Satyaloka, Brahma's planet. And there, if he wants to immediately get liberated, then he has to pass through the coverings of the universe. But if he does not want immediate liberation, he will live with Brahma, and when Brahma gets liberated, he can, along with Brahma, he can get liberated. But if he wants to go before that, then he has to pass through the coverings of the universe. There are like different coverings of the universe, like earth, water, air, fire, ether. These five big elements, the Mahabhuta, five main elements of the material creation. He has to pass through all of them. And he has to pass through other three layers of false ego, Mahatattva, and Pradhan. When he goes through all this person achieves liberation. So earlier we saw that Paramatma meditator, he will get direct liberation. He don't need to go to any other locomotive. He will go from here to directly to the spiritual world, but he Brahma Jyoti basically. But this person will have to traverse to Vaishvana Loka, to Sushima Loka, to Mahar Loka, to Brahma Loka. And there he has to either wait until the end of Brahma's life, or then he has to focus his attention and pass through the coverings of the universe to achieve liberation. So that's why it is called as a gradual liberation. थोड़ा घूम फिर के जाना पड़ेगा इनको, रास्ता थोड़ा लंबा है, it's a long distance. He has to kind of go from one place to another place to another place. It's more like a hitchhiking process. Instead of taking a direct flight, he is like kind of hitchhiking. So that is the two process of Ashtanga Yoga. Now that Shukdev Goswami, after explaining all this big technical detail, he's saying, do you want to hear my personal choice, Parikshit Maharaj? I spoke to you about Ashtanga Yoga. You see how difficult it is. I'll tell you what is my personal favorite process for liberation. He says, after explaining all the Ashtanga Yoga process for attached and unattached yogi, he says, my personal choice for attaining liberation is Bhakti Yoga. So in this way, he speaks Ashtanga Yoga to actually discount it, to show that how difficult it is and how easy is Bhakti Yoga before that. So now he explains how Bhakti Yoga is the best path in a few verses. He says, why Bhakti Yoga is the best process than Ashtanga Yoga? He says it is the most auspicious path for all those suffering in this world. It's very difficult for people to practice this yoga, but this path of Bhakti, it can immediately produce prema to the Lord. So the sadhana bhakti is the most auspicious path, and we should be grateful that we have this opportunity by Srila Prabhupada's grace. This is what Shukadeva Goswami is giving as a conclusion here, that this process of sadhana bhakti is the best of all paths, because it can take one to an advanced stage of prema. And then he says, this is not just what I am saying, this is the verdict of Brahma. Why? Because why Brahma is saying that? Because it produces rati through the Lord. It produces attraction to the Lord. And to conclude this, Lord Brahma, with all his intelligence, studied 3 times Vedas. He studied Vedas 3 times thoroughly with so much intelligence he has. And he comes to a conclusion that Bhakti Yoga, that is specifically the sadhana bhakti, is the best process for conditioned souls in this world, because they can achieve the stage of being attracted to the Supreme Lord. And he says how perceiving the Lord and the Jiva is the Lord is present everywhere. So therefore, one has to meditate on the Supreme Lord. How? By hearing about Him, by glorifying Him, by remembering the Lord and always and everywhere, by practicing sadhana bhakti. Tasmat, therefore, because the Lord and the Jivas are present everywhere, therefore one has to meditate on the Supreme Lord. How? Tasmat Sarvatma Rajan, with all your heart, actually, Hari Sarvatra Sarvada, in all places at all times, Hari. Remember the Lord. Shrotavya, hear about the Supreme Lord. Kirtitavya, speak about Him. And Smartavya, remember Him. Bhagavan Nirna. So in this way, one has to actually always practice remembering, hearing, chanting, and worshipping the Supreme Lord. He says, There are two benefits of this sadhana bhakti. One is it purifies the polluted aim of one's life because conditioned souls want material enjoyment, almost unceasing desires for materially enjoying this world is there. So that will be purified. That polluted aim of life will be purified from their hearts, and then they will attain the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So in this way, he says, "Pibanti ye bhagavata atmana satam kathamritam shravana puteshu samvratam punanti te vishaya vidhushitashayam vrajanti tat charana saroruhantikam." He says, "Pibanti, one who drinks the nectar of the Supreme Lord's glories, Pibanti ye bhagavata atmana satam." One who actually drinks the nectarian message of the Supreme Lord, about the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna through oral reception. How do we drink? Pibanti is generally we drink through mouth, but he says that Katamritam, this Katha Amritam, the nectar of Krishna's message, one has to drink through Shravana Puteshu, by hearing through the ear holes. Sambritam, fully once when one does that, Punanti te Vishaya Vidushitasham. Punanti is he will get purified. Those who drink the nectar of Krishna's message through their ears, they will get purified. Punanti te Vishaya Vidushitasham. All their desires for material enjoyment will be purified. And Vrajanti Tat Charana Saroruhantikam. They will go or they will attain Vrajanti. They will go towards the Supreme Lord's lotus feet. They will attain the Lord's lotus feet, which is the ultimate aim of one's human life. So in this way, he is comparing and contrasting with Bhakti Yoga with Ashtanga Yoga and Karma Kanda. He rejected both the paths. He outright rejected Karma Kanda. He said going to heaven is of no use. But even if you think Ashtanga Yoga gives you liberation, that is a very different kind of liberation. That is not Lord's lotus feet. It is Brahman realization. It is Brahma liberation, Brahman revelation. But he gave his personal example and said, I was Brahman realized. I was liberated in the conception of Brahman, but still I got attracted to Krishna because it is much more higher. And that's why he explains Ashtanga Yoga and shows how difficult it is to meditate on Paramatma, to meditate on Virat Rupa. And instead he says, my choice for practicing spirituality for achieving liberation is sadhana bhakti, because it is the most auspicious path and it is Brahma's verdict. And because the Lord is present everywhere, it is one's duty to actually practice sadhana bhakti, to hear and chant and glorify the Supreme Lord. In this way, one's heart will be cleansed, and then once his heart is cleansed and continues to engage in the process of sadhana, one attains the Supreme Lord's lotus feet, which is the ultimate aim of life. So in this way, he concludes the second chapter by choosing that Bhakti Yoga is better than Ashtanga Yoga. So you don't need to feel overwhelmed when you see so many explanations about Ashtanga Yoga in the first two chapters, about Paramatma and about Virat Rupa and all these things. That is all being told so that Parikshit Maharaj can be told the glories of Bhakti Yoga, and also the sages who are listening, they also will understand how Bhakti Yoga is the highest path. That is where Shukadeva Goswami is explaining. So I'll give you a short recap what we saw so far, a short one in the chapter. Parikshit Maharaj in the end of Canto 1 asks, what is the subject matter one has to hear and chant specifically when one is about to die? Shukadeva Goswami said one should not engage in materialistic topics, but should hear and chant about Krishna, and he glorifies the path of bhakti. So other sages may be thinking, why chanting and bhakti is the only path, why not Ashtanga Yoga? So he begins to speak about Ashtanga Yoga in short, and Parikshit Maharaj asks questions about what is the object of meditation. So he explains in detail that object of meditation for an attached yogi is Virat Rupa. Object of meditation for an advanced yogi is Paramatma. And in this way, he explains how a Paramatma meditator becomes liberated in Brahman realization, situates in Brahman realization. And while being Brahman realized, he practices Shat Chakra Yoga and gets liberated in the Brahman. If a person is a Virat Rupa meditator, he gets purified, he can meditate on Paramatma and become Brahman realized. But if he is not, then he has to meditate on Virat Rupa. And if he still has desires, he will go to different places like Vaishvanar Loka, Shushumar Loka, Mahar Loka, finally to Brahma Loka. And from Brahma Loka, he can get liberated along with Brahma when he gets liberated. Or he can pass through the coverings of the universe and achieve Brahman realization. So after explaining all these complicated aspects of Ashtanga Yoga's process, Shukdev Goswami says, Parikshit Maharaj, I have explained all this, but my personal choice. Don't think this. I am recommending you to practice Ashtanga Yoga. Don't think I am going into detail because I am telling you to practice Ashtanga Yoga. Don't get me wrong. My personal choice is sadhana bhakti. It is bhakti yoga, hearing, chanting, and remembering the Supreme Lord, because that is the most auspicious path for conditioned souls who cannot actually practice these difficult practices of Ashtanga Yoga and still only get Brahman realization. But he says this easy and happy process of sadhana bhakti, if practiced sincerely, can purify one's heart. If one makes hearing and chanting and remembering the Lord as the goal of one's sadhana bhakti, and in this way seriously engages, then he can purify his heart. Punanti te vishaya vidushitasham. They can cleanse their heart and actually not just attain Brahman, they can, by this process, they can attain the Supreme Lord's lotus feet, whose another feature is Brahman. In this way, this process is simple and it can give the highest benefit. That is why Shukdev Goswami says, I choose, this is my personal choice, that Bhakti Yoga is the best path for achieving the goal of one's human life, which is the attaining the Lord's lotus feet, not just liberation. So in this way, he glorifies Bhakti Yoga and he also in between rejects the Karma Kanda. In this way, he establishes how Bhakti Yoga is the topmost process against Ashtanga Yoga and Karma Kanda. In the next two chapters, in chapter 3 and 4, he will speak more about other processes also. We will hear that next week. So, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, if anyone has any questions, we can take at this point. Otherwise, I have completed from my side.
Haribol Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Karma Kanda, what are the practical examples of Karma Kandis people? Like they do and offer the fruits to Krishna. Are those considered as Karma Kandis?
Okay, in the modern world, actually, we don't see so many Karma Kandi. The Karma Kandas sacrifices are something like they have to perform, say, this particular yajna to Indra to achieve certain kind of pious credits, and in that way they can go to heavenly planet like that. That is their goal. The proper karma kanda sacrifices practices are not so much in karma Kali Yuga actually, because one has to have a proper qualified Brahmin and practice so many austerities. It is not very cheap. It's not necessarily easy, but they do all that because they think going to heavenly planets and enjoying is the highest goal, is the goal of life.
Okay.
So that is not even karma yoga. Karma yoga comes after karma kanda. Karma Kanda, the person is focused. He thinks, he listens to some passages like how in the moon planet one can drink somaras and enjoy with girls. So then he thinks, okay, what is the process? Then they say you have to perform this sacrifice for 40 days. You have to do this austerity. You have to do that. So then they will do all that with the aim of going to the planet moon and enjoying it. So it is very materialistic. It has no conception of liberation or anything like that.
And Karma Yoga is different.
Karma Yoga is different. Karma Yoga is this person is one level more purified by following the Vedic sacrifices. He performs all his occupational duties, but in that also there are two levels. There is Nishkama Karma Yogi and Sakama Karma Yogi. Sakama Karma Yogi, he understands there is God. Purpose of life is to uh, achieve liberation, and he works and then offers his results, but he has some attachment to his results. He has some desires, and in that way he is called Sakam Karma Yogi. But if he continues to practice that, he gets purified and becomes a Nishkama Karma Yogi. There he just does his duties because it is his duty. He's just doing it for the sake of doing the duties and offers all the results to Krishna. And in that way he gradually gets purified. So if you ask what is the difference between Bhakti Yoga, the Bhakti Yoga, the main process is like hearing and chanting, and that is the thing. The work is the person is doing for the sake of maintaining one's life, but is not attached to doing that. But in Karma Yoga, there is a lot of attachment to that particular kind of activity. Like a Brahmin is attached to doing Brahminical activities, a Kshatriya is attached to doing Kshatriya kind of activities. So that's, but here this person is fighting or doing worship, whatever, because Krishna wants him to do. There is more attachment to work in Karma Yoga than God. In Bhakti Yoga, there is full attachment to God, and work is being done because to serve God.
Okay. Roji, one more question not related to today's topic. Vyasdev is a Sakyavesh avatar, like Prithu Maharaj is also of Sakyavesh avatar. So are they actually